The Haitian Revolution explained in under 10 minutes. In 1804, one of the deadliest plagues in human history was underway. Haiti was a place known as French Saint-Domingue, a prosperous colony of the French Empire, an island paradise where sugar and coffee were king. As well as 750,000 people lived under the most brutal slavery on earth. But this is also where the revolution began. A revolution that would take down one of the greatest empires on earth and change the course of world history. This is the story of how enslaved people took a stand against the French and won the world's first Black Republic. But before we get into it, there are some names you need to know. Toussaint Louverture, Jean-Jacques Dessalines, Saint-Domingue, and Polverel. The latter two are less important, but they played a big role at the start. And there's also Laveau, the voodoo mambo, who provided spiritual guidance to the rebels. Let's meet them all. Toussaint Louverture was born into slavery on the island of Saint-Domingue, or what today we call Haiti. He was bought by a wealthy French planter and became the overseer of his estate. As a child, Toussaint learned to read and write in secret, devoured every book he could find on philosophy and the Enlightenment, and grew to hate the barbarity of slavery while working on the sugarcane plantations. Meanwhile, across the ocean, the French Revolution was underway. And in Paris, Saint-Domingue and Polverel were members of the Jacobin Club, a radical political faction dedicated to ending the monarchy and the oppression of man by man. And finally, back in Saint-Domingue, there was Laveau, a mambo or priestess of voodoo. A religion created by West Africans that combined Catholicism with traditional beliefs about spirits and magic. She would become a crucial ally to the revolutionaries. So let's just recap really quick. We've got a bunch of French aristocrats on their plantations in Haiti, making huge amounts of money off the backs of enslaved Africans. There's also a group of educated and enlightened former slaves who dream of freedom. And then there are the enslaved people themselves who suffer under the cruelest slavery anywhere on earth. In fact, life in the colony of Saint-Domingue was so bad that it led one writer to claim, if the ghosts of the dead had a voice, the whole island would tremble. Now, in order for this revolution to happen, these disparate groups need to unite. So when news of the French Revolution reaches the island, Saint-Domingue and Polverel arrive from France to enforce its ideals of liberty, equality, and fraternity. They declare that slavery is abolished and Toussaint Louverture is promoted to the rank of free lieutenant colonel. But despite the talk of liberty, the white colonists are pretty scared. They realize that if slavery is abolished, they will lose their cheap labor force and their massive fortunes. So the whites form a militia to protect their interests, and the freed slaves return to working the fields. But Toussaint isn't having it. He wants to take advantage of the chaos caused by the French Revolution and the war between Britain and France to win real freedom for himself and his people. So Toussaint Louverture takes arms into the forest and launches a guerrilla war against the French. Meanwhile, across the island, the other enslaved people hear of Toussaint's rebellion and join him in droves. Within months, he's liberated almost the entire western part of the island. Next, he sends envoys to both the Spanish and British asking for support against the French. And because the Spanish and British both have massive economic and military interests in weakening France, they agree. Toussaint marches east to take over the remaining plantations and cities, defeats the Spanish forces in the east, and liberates the northern city of Cape Francais. And soon after, he has control of the entire island. Toussaint is a hero. He becomes governor of the colony and ends slavery throughout the entire island. It is a true testament to the power of the tech Enlightenment that just a few years after the wildest imagination could not have dreamed of such a thing. But France has other plans. See? Even though France was in the middle of a revolution and a war with Britain, they still value their colonies and the wealth they bring. And besides, remember those guys, Saint-Domingue and Polverel? Well, they left Saint-Domingue to go back to France, only to come back around and see that slavery has been abolished, and they don't like that at all. So they team up with some sympathetic French generals to launch a counter-revolution and restore slavery in Saint-Domingue. And the French National Assembly agrees, sending troops to restore order and re-enslave the population. But Toussaint Louverture is ready for them. He defeats them in battle and imprisons many of the French troops. Even worse, he executes Sonthonax and Pulverel for their betrayal. Meanwhile, word of Toussaint's victory spreads throughout the island and inspires enslaved people everywhere to rebel. Entire plantations are burned to the ground as people escape to join Toussaint's army. But France is not done. They send out a new general, a little guy named Napoleon Bonaparte, who raises an army of 20,000 men to conquer the island and restore slavery once and for all. Toussaint and his army are outnumbered. But he knows the terrain and the forests of the mountains and swamps of the south are perfect for guerrilla tactics. So he lays an ambush, defeating the unprepared French. And as the French regroup, he ambushes them again and again and again, to slaughter. 10,000 French troops are killed in action, and the rest surrender. Napoleon flees back to France in disgrace, and Toussaint Louverture is victorious. For 5 years, Toussaint rules over the island of Haiti. He creates a constitution that establishes the island as a sovereign state, abolishes slavery, and institutes universal male suffrage. Unfortunately, he dies in prison in France in 1803, having been betrayed by Napoleon and sold out by his own generals. But before he dies, he passes the torch to Jean-Jacques Dessalines. Dessalines had been a tailor before the revolution, but quickly rose through the ranks as a military leader due to his bravery and skill. Under his leadership, the colony grew stronger and defeated Spanish and British forces attempting to reconquer the island. But the French aren't done. Napoleon needs to fund his wars in Europe. And what better way than to reconquer Haiti and restore slavery, which would be a huge source of wealth for the French Empire. But this time, he sends his best general, General Leclerc, with a massive army of 30,000 men. Leclerc offers the enslaved people a deal: pardon their past and grant them citizenship if they return to work on the plantations. But Dessalines refuses and prepares for war. This final battle between the Haitian revolutionaries and the French would be the most costly of the entire revolution. But Dessalines was prepared. Using hit-and-run tactics, he and his generals picked the French army apart, winning decisive battles. Meanwhile, the French were racked by disease and internal conflict. After 3 years of fighting, General Leclerc is forced to sign peace accords recognizing Haitian independence. And on January 1, 1804, the country celebrates with a ceremony at which Jean-Jacques Dessalines reads the Declaration of Independence. Haiti is officially a sovereign state and the first Black republic in the Western Hemisphere. Sadly, Dessalines would soon become a dictator and rule like the very aristocrats he had overthrown. But that is a story for another video. Today, we celebrate the courage and bravery of the Haitian people in their fight for freedom. They fought the greatest empires on earth and won. Alright everyone, that's our show. Like and subscribe for more revolutions that change the world in under 10 minutes.